I was born here in Moncton on January the 2nd, 1952, when the Moncton City Hospital was located on King Street. My parents were Cecil and Hazel MacArthur. I have an older sister, Donna, and a younger sister, Diane. We lived initially on Reed Street here in Moncton. My father worked for the New Brunswick Forestry Department. I would say we were a typical post-war family living in a quiet and safe neighborhood. A two-bedroom house on Reed Street became too small for our family needs, so was sold in the summer of 1958. However, our new house on Bissett Avenue wasn't completed, so we moved to Grangeville to live with my grandmother MacArthur for almost 3 months. I started grade 1 in a one-room schoolhouse in Grangeville, but when we moved back to Moncton, attended the Hillcrest School. That arrangement only lasted a few weeks as my father accepted a new job as a warden at Fundy National Park. We moved to the park in late September 1959, living in one of the more remote regions of the park, often referred to as Up Sinclair Hill. Because of this, we were driven to the Alma Superior School in a park vehicle. Our family attended the Alma United Baptist Church, and at age 10, I was baptized in that church to profess my faith in Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord. In late 1964, our family moved to Boylston, Nova Scotia, as my father responded to a call to ministry and became the pastor of the Guysborough, Boylston, and Queensport United Baptist churches. I never really graduated from high school. When I finished Nova Scotia grade 11, you were eligible to apply for a 4-year university degree program. Perhaps it was in part because we were moving from Boylston to River Hibbert, where my father would become the new pastor, and I would be changing schools for 1 year anyway. I chose to apply to UBBTS. My sister Donna had attended UBBTS, and all my impressions of the place were positive. There were about 55 students in total that year, up from the previous year when enrollment had been in the 40s. Prospect of going to university seemed a little less fearful for me by starting my university education at UBBTS. I enrolled in the freshman arts program, the first-year university program. I started in the fall of 1969, and at age 17, I'm quite sure I was the youngest student on campus. It was my worst year academically, but was a great year for me in every other way. The male-female ratio reflected the Beach Boys song, 2 girls for every guy. I became a member of the choir, and I recall our choir singing on one occasion in the newly opened Highfield Square Mall, where the Avenir Center stands today. I became a member of a gospel team and traveled regularly with Dr. Murray. He was prepping churches for a vote to be taken at the 1970 Baptist Convention to change the name of the institution from United Baptist Bible Training School to Atlantic Baptist College. I can still hear the case Dr. Murray was making. It needed to be called Atlantic because that described our location in Atlantic Canada and the primary region that the school served. It needed to be called Baptist because that identified its founding body to whom it was accountable. And it needed to be called college because that best described its academic standing, as it no longer provided high school courses. Gospel team travels took me to parts of the Maritimes and into the state of Maine where I had never been before. I was often amazed that Dr. Murray always seemed to know where he was going, forgetting or not knowing that he had been an evangelist with our convention and had traveled the region many times. I would say that my 8 months at UBBTS had an oversized influence on my life. I can't fully explain it, but I recognize it. Faith and beliefs were being shaped. Experiences and interactions were molding your person and character. Faculty, staff, students, we got to know each other. Chapel, I don't remember that it was mandatory, but you had better be prepared to explain yourself if you were absent. The spiritual climate was very real, and we were challenged in the chapel and the classroom with biblical truth. In the dorm, we had great debates about election and predestination and the end times, to name a few. My first semester at UBBTS was an eye-opener. Second semester showed improvement, but still not stellar performance. I had to learn how to study. It was also during my year at UBBTS that I began to feel the Lord might be calling me into ministry. It all came to a head when I needed to apply to Crandall University. I thought if I was called to ministry, I should apply for the arts program, and if not, I should apply to the Bachelor of Administration program. I was asked if I would speak at the Fisher Hill Church one Sunday, as many other UBBTS students had done. I felt that experience would tell me decisively whether or not I was called. Based on performance, I came back and applied for the business program. It was also at UBBTS that I got what I think was my first glimpse of my future wife. She wasn't a student at UBBTS, but for a brief time received some musical coaching from another student. By God's grace, at the end of my year at UBBTS, I had 5 transferable credits that Crandall University accepted towards the Bachelor of Administration degree, which I received in 1973. By the end of my first year in the business program at Acadia, I was convinced of being called into ministry and also became a pre-theology student. After graduating with my BBA, I became a full-time student at Acadia Divinity College and graduated with my Master of Divinity in 1976. In March 1982, I took my first course in the Doctor of Ministry program at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois, on the outskirts of Chicago. This was a program designed for full-time pastors in that you attended an on-campus intensive week course and then had 3 months to complete assignments based on the course. When I started the program, I was serving as pastor of the First Baptist Church in Campbellton, New Brunswick. I graduated from the program in December 1988. Most of my ministry service has been as a pastor. During my last year at the seminary, I became the pastor of the North and South Alton churches and stayed an additional year after graduating with my MDiv. I was ordained at the North Alton United Baptist Church on October the 1st, 1976. We moved to Penobscot, New Brunswick in the spring of 1977, where I pastored the Penobscot, Portage Vale, and Dutch Valley churches. We then moved to Campbellton for almost 5 years, and then to Louisville Baptist here in Moncton in March 1986, where I served for 14 years, my longest pastorate. Just before retiring, I was senior pastor of the Bridgewater Baptist Church for almost 4 years, and after retiring, was half-time interim pastor at the Brunswick Street Baptist Church for almost 2 years. As I look back, I realize how privileged I've been to serve these wonderful churches, and I'm thankful for all the dear saints that I have worked with through the years. I realize more and more how blessed I've been to have grown up in a Christian home with parents who love the Lord and sisters who continue to be strong believers. I also married into a good family, the Downey clan, with its mixture of business, musicians, and ministers. Roxanne and I married on May the 11th, 1974, and we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary next week. I can't believe that 50 years could go by so quickly, although I must say there were a few long days within those 50 short years. Roxanne is a gem, and without her as a helpmate, I could not have served in the ways I felt called. Together, we were blessed to have 5 children: Jeff, Jennifer, Julianne, Janet, and Jessica. We acknowledge each as a continuing gift from the Lord, and we are proud of each of them. They have married well and have given us 12 wonderful grandchildren. My appointment as president began officially January the 1st, 2001. At some point, I was filling out a form and realized I began on 01/01/01. My first day in the office was January the 2nd, my 49th birthday. In the morning, an employee came into my office stating that they were quitting and wanted a payout. I was in a lawyer's office before the day was over. So began the excitement of every day, never knowing what the day would include, what would come through the door. I served for 11 years, the 3rd longest tenure for a principal or a president of the institution. I never imagined myself as becoming president of Crandall. The decision came out of as intense a struggle to know God's will as I've ever experienced. The process over a few short days has many details. Sufficient to say I had many fears and was forgetting the greatness of our God. I was reading the book of Nehemiah, and it struck me that a pagan king who wasn't invested spiritually in Nehemiah's mission to restore Jerusalem gave him leave of absence, protection for his journey, and resources to help with the rebuilding. The Lord reminded me that He ultimately controls all of earth's resources, not just those in the hands of His people. He reminded me that the university belonged to Him and that I had no idea of the provision He was preparing. Out of that struggle, I felt I received assurances in a number of ways. I'm thankful for the clarity of God's call, and also the clarity when my time was complete as president. In my inaugural address, which no one remembers except me, and I only remember because I have a copy, I stated that my vision and commitment was to do 3 basic things: to articulate mission, advocate quality, and to activate support. The change in governance structure during my tenure included articulating our mission in a more focused way. I found it an empowering process. Twice we went to the New Brunswick legislature to revise the university's act, which again had to do with giving legal boundaries and structure to our stated mission. On the issue of quality, I think the success of our graduates is testimony to the fact that an education at Crandall is at the very least equal to any other university offering the same programs. And the Lord provided year by year the needed finances. I remember the year that we were finally able to pay off the accumulated operating deficit, which is separate from what we owed mortgage-wise. That year, at the September faculty and staff and their families gathering, we served lobster. We splurged a little. I need to emphasize that God has used a host of people in the building up and the growth of this university. The dedication of faculty members and staff members, students we've enjoyed, alumni, loyal donors. it has always been a team ministry. I need to say as well that my appreciation and respect for previous presidents and principals grew during my tenure as I realized the extent to which each played a strategic role in furthering the mission. And I have great respect for the way the mission has grown exponentially under Dr. Fawcett's leadership. And I would say to God be the glory for it all. He is faithful. Times of adversity both tests and develops faith. Consider the witness of Scripture. The prophets all took a pounding, and the apostles all knew adversity. Serving the Lord is both rigorous and rewarding. I have noted how precise God's timing can be when you need a word of encouragement. In the early days of serving here at Crandall, I felt overwhelmed, to the point that you can doubt whether this could really be God's will and whether or not you had read things correctly. At the same time, I was reading about the prayer of Jabez. Again, God breathed assurance into my soul through that small booklet. I think God regularly calls people into service that is beyond their capability, but never beyond His capability. And we learn to trust Him as we grow in His strength. Every phase of life has its blessings and challenges. Recently, I read these words in Psalm 92, verses 14 and 15. Even in old age, they will still produce fruit and be vital and green. This honors the Lord and exhibits His faithful care. He is my shelter. There is nothing but goodness in Him. I was convicted by the words that in old age we are still to bear fruit. Even in retirement, our relationship with the Lord needs to be one of growth and serving. Since retiring, I have served a 6-year term on the Board of Trustees at Acadian Divinity College, and am now a member of the Council of the CBAC. I was a member of the Council at First Baptist Church, where we attend for 3 years, and am now on the finance team at the church. I also served for 4 years as president of our condo association in the building where we live. Involvement with our family members is also of great importance, and we have enjoyed some very special family gatherings. The days and weeks just seem to fly by. My time as a student at UBBTS helped to ground my faith, and in hindsight, I realize it was during my time at the school that I began to grapple with a sense of call to ministry. Both were pivotal to my future. During my time as president, I learned more about walking by faith and trusting God for things beyond your control. I was a witness to things that were abundantly more than I could ask or imagine. I was out on an errand, and when I got home, Ross-Ann said that Bob Knowles had called, and he would like me to call back as soon as possible. I thought there might be some tidbit of information from the past that he might find helpful. When he asked me if I would be willing to accept the Distinguished Alumni Award, I didn't know what to say. He suggested I say yes and thank you. It's humbling to be so honored and recognized, and I am grateful and thankful for all that God has chosen to do in my life through every association I have had with this university, through all its special chapters as UBBTS, ABC, ABU, and Crandall.
Brian, what a privilege it is for me tonight on a personal level to be able to share with you these words of congratulations on you being the recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award of Crandall University in our 75th anniversary year. We're grateful for your example of leadership, both in the local church, in the broader Baptist community, and specifically here at Crandall University. When I think about your role in my life, Brian, there are two things that really come to mind. The first is how back in 1992, when you were serving as the senior pastor at the Louisville Baptist Church and the church was looking for an assistant to come and work with you, you along with the church invited me to serve in that role. And for 8 years we served together, and I learned a great deal from you in two ways. First is from your explicit teaching. I had never been in a full-time role anywhere before, and I didn't know how to go about the practice of ministry. But you helped me understand how to do it and how to do it effectively. The younger ministers of the day viewed you, Brian, as the master pastor, as an example, someone who did it effectively. And I had the opportunity for 8 years to serve alongside you as you gave me pointers and steered me in the right direction. But the second way I learned from you was not only through what you said, but also for how you just went about ministry, how you interacted with people, how you served people around you, how you had a concern for the broader community. And that taught me a great deal, just the ability to watch and learn and be influenced by your example. So I'll always be grateful for those years we had together and the opportunities I've had since to seek your advice and counsel. So thank you for that. And the second and perhaps more obvious way tonight is the fact that you were the president who served here immediately before me. And God laid on your heart and the hearts of the board of that day the possibility that this university could perhaps even grow to serve 1,000 students. And in order to do that, the facilities would need to be expanded. And I suspect there were people in that time who remembered the days of the United Baptist Bible Training School and Atlantic Baptist College, where maybe we had 150 students, and wondered how could that place grow to serve 1,000 students? Would that ever be possible? But in your heart, you believed that God had called you to the tasks to lay foundations so that that could be the case. And so the facilities grew and were expanded. And here we are today with more than 1,700 students. That would never have been possible without that sense of vision and trust and hope and optimism that exuded from you and from the leadership team of that day. I can only imagine the time, emotional energy, and expense that it took to bring that into fruition, to bring that dream to reality. But we've been grateful for that foundation that you laid that has allowed the university to move to this stage of its life and development. So on behalf of the students who are here today, on behalf of the board that serves today, and our 200 employees who are here serving day in, day out, thank you for the role that you played in allowing the university to move to this level of its existence today. We're grateful for it. Congratulations again on being one of our most distinguished alums, and we're grateful for your service here and throughout the Atlantic region.